everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of NFL Draft Triple Take here on Steelers.com. I'm Mike Prisuta from the Steelers Radio Network and Steelers.com, joined by Dale Lolley of the Steelers Radio Network and Steelers.com and SNR, and Matt Williamson, Dale's co-host on SNR's The Drive. You can also find Matt's written word on Steelers.com. You can hear him just about anywhere Steelers are spoken or Steelers topics are spoken. We are here today with another draft preview for you, and we're going to hit the offensive linemen today. Not necessarily the most exciting of positions, but you got to have them. Everybody needs them. And Matt, you're the former scout in our group. A lot of guys that like to evaluate this kind of stuff every year think this is a really deep offensive line class. Are you as excited about all these tackles as everybody else seems to be about all these tackles?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an exceptional group that there's four high-quality tackles that most years would be the first guy off the board. A lot of traits with those guys. I'm sure they'll be the top of all of our lists that are really enticing. But then there's probably another 4 to 10 that look like potential starters or potential, above average starters. And then there's a couple projects on top of that. But the interior O-line class is blah.
Dale, it's kind of like the other deep positions, that tackle class, isn't it? They're similar to running back or wide receiver. It kind of comes down to what you specifically want, because there's a lot of guys that make the grade.
Yeah, and if you look at this group, and I agree with Matt that the interior guys are a little lacking. We may see
a little lacking. He said blah.
Yeah, he said blah. I think we could see as many as 7 offensive tackles taken in the first 50 picks, and maybe only 1 interior offensive lineman in the first 50 picks. But 7 offensive tackles in the first 50 picks, and none of them would be reaches. That's the key part, because tackles always end up getting overdrafted a little bit because everybody needs them. And so you see guys get drafted in the first round or, early second round in other years that don't necessarily belong there. These guys all belong. They're some of the top prospects in this draft.
Yeah, not only belong, but Sean O'Hara, for example, of the NFL Network, he thinks there's a lot of year one starters, maybe some day one, game one starters, guys that you can plug and play. Those are always the guys you love to draft, because you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to overcoach it. You just have to throw them out there and let them do their stuff. Matt, let's start with you as we count it down from number 10 in the offensive line. You're going with Isaiah Wilson from Georgia.
Yeah, a lot of buzz about this guy lately. I mean, 6'6.5", 350, 84.5-inch wingspan. I mean, he's a huge human being. Got overshadowed a little by Andrew Thomas, who I'm sure is going to be on all of our lists, the other opposite bookend at Georgia. But this guy's all about size, moving bodies, straight ahead power. He's a little bit of a work in progress, though, especially in protection.
Dale, you went a different route at number 10.
Yeah, I got Lucas Niang of TCU. And the interesting thing about him, Mike, is that I talked to him at the Combine. He had a torn labrum in his hip that he injured in his junior year, and basically played the rest of his junior year with that, and then came back and played his senior year until the Texas game. And the reason he waited until the Texas game to actually shut it down and go have surgeries, he wanted to help TCU beat Texas. That was his main goal. I can tell you right now that, having had labrum surgery in my shoulder, that's a very painful injury. He was still a very good player at TCU despite having that very painful hip injury, and I expect him to come back and be even better. He was ready to run at the Combine, didn't do so, was going to wait till his pro day, but he's a very good football player.
Yeah, I appreciate that kind of effort and commitment as well. Matt, does that stuff matter to a scout when a guy's thinking team instead of making a quote-unquote business decision?
Oh, absolutely. And a guy like Niang is, I didn't say his name properly there, but is a perfect example of any year would have been a top 10 offensive lineman. I mean, there's 5 guys that didn't make my list that could be top 50 picks. So it's a great example of the tackle depth in this draft too.
I went a different round as well with my number 10. I'm going with one of those blah interior guys, Cesar Ruiz of Michigan. And even though he played at Michigan,
That's
guys,
gonna pay you to put him there.
Wow.
I'm here to praise Caesar, not to bury him. Oh, a little Shakespeare for you.
Yeah, but are you going to stick? If are you going to stick
Brutus.
a knife in him if you ever have to interview him? That's the question. Are you going to start stabbing him?
In the back, probably. No, this guy has been a starter. And, Dale, you mentioned TCU. They got a lot of prospects for a team that wasn't exactly top 10. Michigan falls into that category as well. But this guy has been a starter. Daniel Jeremiah thinks he's a day one starter. Center maybe isn't the highest of priorities a lot of times, but this guy looks like he can be an NFL center for a long, long time. And jumping to my number 9, I went in the same direction. Lloyd Cushenberry III of LSU, who could also play guard. I imagine Ruiz could as well. But this is one of those guys, that number 18 at LSU, the one the players vote for the inspirational guy, the leadership type guy. They want him to wear number 18 on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. Cushenberry could not wear it because he played offensive line, but they gave him a patch with number 18. And I got a kick out of the Senior Bowl. He actually did wear number 18 because who cares what your number is in that game. But when a guy is that highly thought of his teammates and puts out the tape that Cushenberry III did, that goes a long way with me.
Yeah, he's a good football player, Mike, and I couldn't put him above some of the tackles on this list. I mean, this is such a special tackle group that you just look at it. I had Wilson, who Matt had at 10, is my number 9. He's just a massive human being, and there's several of those in this group that you just can't find these 6'6", 340-pound, 350-pound guys walking the earth. It's the planet theory. There are only so many of these guys on the planet, and if you got a chance to take one, you take them.
I like that theory. Matt, you've got Cushenberry at number 9.
Yeah, I have Ruiz at 6, and I have Cushenberry at 9. And there are some similarities. Obviously, I think both of them are pretty close to plug-and-play guys as rookies, which is a high compliment because that's a very intellectual position. A team like the Patriots or Dallas could be looking for somebody like that longtime starters, barring injury. Both have good size and physicality. Both could play guard or center, considered team leaders, as you mentioned. Cushenberry's not a short-armed guy. He's highly productive against top competition. So there's a lot to like about both those guys, and I really think they're both, a leadoff double. They're just very safe.
Matt, we'll stay with you going to number 8. A guy that I find pretty interesting, as I imagine a lot of people do, Ezra Cleveland of Boise State.
Yeah, he may take a little time just from a weight room, sand in his pants, bulk, strength perspective. As good a tester as you'll ever see at the combine, though, and that includes some of the bigger names we're going to get to here. And he moves that way. He's a very fluid player. Very natural knee bender. You see the ankle flexion. That's a good one you guys are going to use. But you can see why somebody would an offensive line coach is going to look at him and say, I can't wait to get my hands on him, mold him into a stud, and our weight program will help out.
Dale, you as you mentioned, you had your Ruiz at number 8 for Michigan. I went with Isaiah Wilson at Georgia at number 8. Ezra Cleveland was my number 7, and I got to admit I was slightly influenced. Dale, you'll probably appreciate this. Daniel Jeremiah made a reference to Ezra Cleveland at the Combine, and he noted that Ezra Cleveland had the best 3-cone drill among the offensive linemen, and he said no one did it better than Ezra.
I imagine he's very good. That's it.
I got a kick out of that. Number 7 on Dale's list is also Ezra Cleveland. And number 7 on Matt Williamson's list, really interesting guy, Austin Jackson out of USC, who's an off-the-field story as well as an on-the-field story. Matt, what were you taking that impacted you the most in that story of Austin Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jackson and Jedrick Wills, who we'll get to, are both very young prospects. And at a position where strength is so important and body development, you got to think the best is ahead for him. And I think the story you're mentioning is he basically saved his sister's life by donating plasma and reading more about it.
Bone marrow.
Bone marrow. Yeah. I'm sorry. Not a doc here. They, I guess they drilled into his hip bones and pulled the marrow out. And usually that takes 2 to 3 years to recover, or at least 2 years to recover. Played as he recovered last year and didn't put his best tape out there, but all kinds of traits. I mean, this guy, maybe he is a little bit of a work in progress, and his best tape we didn't just see, but there's a lot to work with here.
Yeah, and he's also only 20 years of age. A lot of teams like those guys that haven't necessarily played long enough in college to develop bad habits. They're more of a moldable piece of clay when they come out younger. But as long as you show the physical characteristics and put some good stuff on tape, that's sometimes more advantageous, is it not?
Oh, without question. Again, it's an offensive line coach's dream to give me this moldable piece of clay that has all this ability, and I can turn him into a star.
As we mentioned, Dale and I had Cleveland at number 7.
That's as high as Cleveland's been in years.
Well done. You've been saving that one.
My number 6 is Josh Jones from Houston. This is another one of those, 6'5", 319, not quite a planet guy, but he's not small by any stretch of the imagination. And I really like, though, a description that Daniel Jeremiah gave on this guy. He said he's not necessarily flashy, but he just blocks the guy in front of him. Dale, that is the idea.
That's
at some point when we stop obsessing about 3-cone drills and what he does with his hips, does he block the guy in front of him?
Yeah, he does, and he's better as a pass blocker than he is as a run blocker. You're going to see that with a lot of these guys because so many of them are coming from spread offenses that they're going to need to do some work on their run blocking. But if you're a good pass blocker in today's NFL, the run blocking will come, or you can at least just get in the way. He's really athletic. In a lot of years, he would have been the number 1 offensive tackle off the board. He's that good. In this class, he's a little farther down the list.
Now you've got Jones at number 5.
I got him at 5. Yeah,
Got him at 5. Matt, your number 6 is Ruiz. Did we?
Yeah, I talked about him a little, but I want to talk a little more Jones if possible, because I think he's clearly 5. There's 4 really good tackles. Then I think Jones stands alone. Just doesn't quite have the upside of the 4 that we'll get to ahead of him. But like you guys mentioned, I mean, his tape, there's just very little bad tape with him. I mean, he's just constantly in front of his guy getting his job done.
Yeah, I've got Jackson as my number 5, Jones at 6. I'm projecting a little bit with Jackson, but I really like the character of that kid. He did make all Pac-12. They throw the ball a lot, so hopefully that'll help him transition to the NFL. My number 4 is Andrew Thomas of Georgia. And Sean O'Hara said, put him in week 1, don't even think about him. Matt, is he overrating him, or is that about right?
No, I think that's a good way of putting it because he's got a lot of experience at Georgia, has played both sides. An aggressive mentality. Once in a while, you'll see him over extended time going for the kill, but tons to work with. I think he's clearly number 4 of this elite group of 4. But kind of like to Dale's point with Jones, I mean, most years he'd be the first tackle off the board.
Dale, you've got him at number 4 as well. And then you guys are in agreement on number 3. You've both got Mekhi Becton from Louisville.
You want to talk about the planet theory, Mike?
Yeah.
This guy's as big as a planet.
I mean, this is a really impressive tackle class if this guy's number 3.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I mean, you look at him, he's got everything that you would want. And the interesting thing about him is that Louisville would take him, and depending on, they always wanted him on the strong side. So he played both right and left tackle, sometimes in the same game. I mean, he would just move back and forth. And so he's an interesting guy in that you look at him with that. I mean, he's 350 pounds. So you look at him and go, well, he's got to be a right tackle in the NFL, right? He's very athletic for a guy that size. And I think he could play left tackle in the NFL as well because of his size and reach.
Got him 3rd also, Matt.
Yeah, I'm a Becton fan as well. I mean, he's 364 pounds and runs a 5.1. I mean, like, that was jaw-dropping at the combine, and he looked good doing it. At 6'7.5". Obviously, he has the long arms and the huge hands and all those things. And at the college level, I mean, when he gets his hands on you, it's over. He's one of those few guys that it might actually take an extra step to get around when bending the arc and pass protection. But he does need a little bit of work on his footwork and his recovery and his hand placement and things like that as a protector. But, boy, there's a lot to like here.
Yeah, that was, there's 337 guys at the combine, give or take. And almost all of them, or at least the vast majority of them, run the 40. And when he ran that 5.1, that was
wow.
Yeah. It's stunning.
Aircraft carriers don't move that fast.
Right.
He's number one on my list. Charles Davis of the NFL Network called him the human Richter scale, and Sean O'Hara called him a planet. He is a universe of his own. I think a little more highly of him than you guys do, but everybody thinks highly of him. Dale, your number 2 is the same as Matt's number 2, and that is Tristan Wirfs from Iowa.
You want to talk about a guy, Mike, who went to the combine and did freaky stuff at his size. I mean, he looked like a tight end running around out there on some of these drills. Now, Iowa played him mostly at right tackle, but I think he can play left tackle in the NFL for sure because of his athleticism. And he is a freaky guy. If you watch tape of him, you see him pulling and doing all the things that you would want from an offensive lineman. And he's really good at it, moves well in space, and it's an Iowa lineman. Yeah, you're getting a guy who's been well coached.
I love him. I mean, obviously he's my number 2. He's a freaky athlete. The tape is great. My reservation, though, and it's not really a reservation because I think as a fallback plan, he might be the best guard in the league. And why I say that is he has a wrestler's background. And just think about most of these guys are former basketball players where they mirror their opponent playing defense. They move laterally. They use their eyes a lot. Where Wirfs has a wrestle you to the ground, battle you in tight quarters, guard mentality to him, athleticism about him, lower base, tough as could be, and runs and pulls so well. But he probably will not be a guard because tackles are so much harder to find. But I could see him struggling on an island in mirror protection a little as elite players go.
Kirk Ferentz has been in Iowa a long time, and it's something of an offensive line factory, and that's the kind of the way they build. That's the base of their program, trenches and all that. This kid is the first guy to start as a true freshman at tackle for Kirk Ferentz.
That says something.
That means something. That's like number 18 at LSU. Not just anybody gets to do that. I've got Wirfs 3rd, and I've got Jedrick Wills Jr. of Alabama 2nd. And Matt, to Dale's point about Wirfs played right tackle, but I think he could play left tackle. Wills played right tackle because Tua was left-handed. That was the blind side, and everybody's just projecting that he can play left tackle. But does that give you a pause at all? Would you not rather have a guy that's actually done it, or is it that interchangeable if you're that good?
To that whole situation, I think it means less now than ever. I mean, so many elite NFL edge rushers come from the quarterback's right side that right tackle, left tackle, distinction is a lot less important to me than ever. I need good protectors on both sides. I just don't need a masher on the right and a dancing bear on the left. I think it was you've quoted O'Hara a few times. I think he said switching from left tackle to right tackle is kind of like using toilet paper with your opposite hand for the first time. It's not as easy as you think, and it's kind of messy in the process, so it's not as – it's just, I can play left, I can play right. No, it's a little different. To get to Wills, he's my number 1. And you mentioned how Wirfs played very early at Iowa. Wills played as a true freshman at Bama. I mean, and really never left the field since. Stayed on the right side. Tua's a left-handed quarterback. Very powerful, very nasty. I mentioned him and Jackson are both very young. They're both under 21 years old. Wills actually has a bigger wingspan than Becton.
Which is crazy because he's 4 inches shorter.
Yeah, he's only slightly over 6'4", which some see as a negative, but really good leverage guy. I mean, his combine would be not historic, but really elite if it wasn't for the 3 other guys that just tore it up.
Yeah, I really like him as well, Matt. He was my number one. And you know, starting as a true freshman, as Mike mentioned, starting as a true freshman at Iowa, starting as a true freshman at Bama on that offensive line against other top 5 or 5-star recruits from around the country tells me a lot about this guy. He's played in a lot of really big games, performed in a lot of big games, practiced every day against NFL talent. He's a stud. I think he probably won't be, maybe he'll be a top 5 pick this year because of the way these offensive tackles go. But he doesn't make it out of the top 10 picks. In a lot of years, he may have been the number 1 pick if you look at this in a lot of other years.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm certainly not down on the guy at all. I mean, I just Becton fascinated me with the physical stuff. But there's a picture of Wills. Can't tell what game it's from. He's just got his crimson jersey on, and he's standing with his hands on his hips and like looking at the sideline, and he's got the pipes and the massive size, and he just looks like, who do you want me to block now? I got this covered. Looks the part.
Or who should I kill now? That's the
or that. Yeah. That's going to do it for the O-line. I got to tell you, man, I'm going to try that toilet paper thing when I get a chance.
Yeah, it might not go so well.
See if you and Sean O'Hara are right. Of course, if you're ambidextrous, it's not that big a deal. That to me seems like it'd be a really great skill to have. I'd give my right arm to be ambidextrous.
I'm amphibious. That's
That's going to do it for the O-line. For Dale Lolley and for Matt Williamson, I'm Mike Prisuta, reminding you to keep it here for all your draft coverage. Steelers.com is the place to be. We will be back again soon with yet another edition of the NFL Draft Triple Take right here on Steelers.com.